Hi, I'm Tim Carroll from Linear Acoustic, and today we're going to talk about another version of our Aero 1 product. In other videos you will have seen the Aero 1 TV, which is a dual stereo processor, the Aero 1 DTV, which can handle up to 6 channels of audio, so a stereo to 5.1. Today we're going to talk about Aero 1 V3, or Aero 1 5.1. We say V3 because it's a little bit shorter and simpler to refer to. The first thing that I would recommend, just like with all of our products, is to start with the user manual. We've worked out a lot of the details, things that we probably can't cover very efficiently in a video, like the block diagram showing the signal flow. They're laid out very carefully so you can work through what you have available to you. And also, we ask that you please fill out the warranty card. This way, when we have software updates, we can get in touch with you and make sure that you have the very latest features and the best performance possible. So V3 adds a second program to the DTV. So again, the DTV is a 5.1 channel or a 6-channel processor. V3 is 5.1 plus 2. And you can use this version to process 2 separate programs, a 5.1 channel program and a stereo or a mono program simultaneously. You can also use this in what we call 5.1 plus local mode, where the second program is actually used to voice over or replace the primary program. Just like the larger Aero Air product, 5.1 plus local means that you get a second upmixer in addition to a second loudness control engine. The settings on the unit are nearly identical to the Aero 1 DTV, with the addition of a secondary program. So if you go into Setup, you'll see under Presets, you go down to View, there's a primary program and there's a secondary program. The primary program is the first 5.1 channel program, or the program that would be applied to the first 3 AES BNC connectors or through SDI. And the secondary program is only a stereo input, but again, because there's a second upmixer in the box, that program can also be turned into 5.1. The other settings are in the I/O menu. That's where signal routing is adjusted. That's where the decision between doing 5.1 plus 2, which is 2 separate programs, and 5.1 plus local, which is a primary program again, and the secondary program is used to work with the primary program somehow, either replacing it or voicing it over. All of the upmixer settings can be found there, so let's go in there. So presets, over to I/O, down to View, starts with master bypass. Things are pretty similar here. The GPI settings, so how do you control EAS? How do you control upmixing? That sort of thing. Keep going down. This is the primary upmixer, upmix left front, right front. We like to use the auto setting. It removes the necessity of having a contact closure to decide when to upmix. It will detect if a program is 5.1 and remove upmixing. Importantly, it will never damage center channel dialogue. Those signals always pass through. You can set how much of the center channel to spill back into left front, right front, how deep you want the surround channels. All these things are normal and common from the DTV version. Here's the local input. Again, this can be controlled by GPI. It can be set manually. Right now it's set to off. You can set it to on. You can set it to replace the main program. Here is the control for the second program's upmixer. So this determines whether that second stereo program will be applied to an upmixer. Right now it says it will. Putting it in 2-channel mode passes those 2 channels through untouched. So this means that if you have a 5.1 channel on the main program and a stereo program applied to 7 and 8 for the local, without upmixing, it would apply that audio to left front, right front. This can be useful in some cases. Again, upmixing is a useful thing. It'll keep the dialogue centered. Here are the controls for the secondary upmixer. If you are using this in so-called 5.1 plus local mode, what do you do with the 7 and 8 output? We provide a full-time downmix signal there of the main program. And you can choose between LTRT, which is a surround-compatible 2-channel downmix, or LORO, which is more of a stereo-compatible downmix. LTRT is stereo-compatible. It'll just sound wider through headphones. We would recommend in most cases to use LORO where possible. Right here, downmix to 7/8 is set to off, so that means that the box is in 5.1 plus 2 mode. If you turn the downmix on, now it is in 5.1 plus local mode. There's a gain control for the 7 and 8 output. This is really important. In a situation where the 5.1 channel program may be AC3 or Dolby Digital encoded, and the 2-channel version of the program may be MPEG encoded, there is a built-in difference in level between those two systems. The Dolby Digital system is looking for audio that matches the dial norm metadata value. MPEG doesn't have that sort of a reference. So you'll notice probably in the neighborhood of about an 11 dB difference between the 2-channel and the 5.1. Neither one is incorrect, they're just different. But for a consumer that may switch between the 5.1 Dolby Digital, or AC3, and the 2-channel MPEG, an 11 dB boost going back to stereo can definitely make the phones ring. So this is the place to trim that 7 and 8 output so that the two programs match. We found that a surprising number of MPEG audio encoders actually don't contain any way to adjust audio levels. So this is a handy way to do that. Clock source type. We added this to make up for SDI signals that may not be reference quality. While we don't recommend switching SDI signals or crash switching SDI signals, sometimes that's the case. So we'd like a little bit of a clue about how stable that reference signal is going to be. It sort of tells us what we should do and what we should expect internally with clocks. If in a typical facility references are stable, which is by far the most common thing that we found, then set it to stable. Otherwise, if you're in the field or things are going to be moving around, setting it to changing gives us a little bit of a heads up that we may need to take more time resynchronizing our internal clocks. Clock source is SDI. From here on, everything else is the same. This is common to all of our products. You can set the signal source. In this case, we're coming in from SDI 1 and 2. And the rest of them haven't been set up. Right now it's defaulting to AES 3 and 4, and you can go straight down. SDI embedding is set to disabled, so what's coming in would be passed through. We wouldn't actually be putting audio back into it. SDI out, this is an area that meets with a good deal of confusion. The SDI output 1 and 2, we want to decide what's going to go in there, and if it's set to SDI in 1 and 2, that is a bypass. So it comes in through SDI, it's extracted, reinserted, comes out the SDI output. If you want the processed audio is always available on the AES connectors, and that's why we've named this AES out 1 and 2. So the same processed signal that's on AES 1 and 2 will be inserted into SDI 1 and 2. So it's a little bit confusing, but we wanted to make sure that everybody understands that what's on AES is always processed. That way, when you're selecting to set up for what should be re-embedded into SDI, you set it for AES so you get the processed signal. We know it's a little confusing, but audio for television can be a little confusing. Everything else is pretty much the same, and we cycle through, we get into metadata. If that's your game, you can adjust exactly where the metadata comes from. It's even hard to say. It can be extracted from the vertical ancillary space of SDI. It can be applied through an RS-485 connection. We'll take it from several different locations. Pretty much everything else is the same. The primary changes in this, again, are what do we do with the 7 and 8 output? Is it a down mix, or are we treating it as a +2 channel? And what are we doing with the 7 and 8 input? Are we using that as a separate 2-channel input, or are we using it to replace or voice over the main program? And if we're going to replace the main program, is it going to be done with upmixing turned on? Every other setting in the box nicely remains exactly the same. It's available with a dual Dolby Digital AC3 encoder that can also do Dolby Digital Plus and Dolby Pulse, which is HEAAC. Very powerful one-rack unit high box. There's a lot packed in here. Again, as always, we stand by if you have questions about your product. If watching the video and reading the user manual still leaves you confused, by all means contact us at the factory. We'd be happy to walk through it with you and get you on the air as quickly as possible. Feel free to contact us. So thanks for your time, and I look forward to seeing you on the next video.